Thank you for being today with us this Saturday morning. I am Andri Foga and I am Agora's president. For the people that they don't know me, on behalf of Agora board, I would like to welcome you on the 10th Agora conference. This is a very important conference for Agora as we celebrate our 10th years of Agora establishment in the world of RMDs. The 10th conference, we wanted to be in Malta, but due to the pandemic, we couldn't have it there, so we are going digitally. So our hosted for this year is ARAM, the organization for people with RMDs in Malta. As the first one conference has been in Malta, we decided to go on the 10th anniversary conference in Malta again. I would like to thank Aram and Maribella for this warm hosting. And I hope that we will have a very good conference. Also, I would like to thank His Excellency, Dr. George Bella, who is the President of Malta, for doing our opening of the conference. It is an honor for having him on our Agora conference for this year, for our 10 Agora annual conference. Also, I would like to thank the task force members, Mikhail Nudel, Stalo Baba Mikhail, Kati Andonopoulou, Sina Bujeja, Anna Veira, Christina Bankova, and of course our Secretariat Roderick for the great work on conference program. The conference is concentrated on comorbidities and clinical trial. As you have seen, the program has excellent speakers and topics. Last, I would like to thank the supported company, Alpha Public Relations, that they are hosting today's conference. And I will not take more time. The conference will run as scheduled until 4:30 p.m. set. Thank you for being with us this Saturday, and hope we will have fruitful conference. Now we're going to have Maribella welcome speech, which Maribella is the president of ARAM, the Maltese organization.
May I start by thanking Mrs. Maribella, President of the Arthritis and Rheumatism Association Malta, for inviting me to be with you today and to make some remarks to launch this opening session of the 10th anniversary
that we have
of
problems with the connection of
In the invitation, there was reference to the fact that as an ex-general practitioner and specialist in family medicine for a large number of years, I was expected to carry with me many years of experience, having treated thousands of patients suffering from rheumatic and musculoskeletal conditions. It has to be pointed out, if there is any need to, that as we all know, in the field of medicine, things change. And progress in knowledge of etiology, diagnostic methods, laboratory tests and technology, and hence treatment, is moving forwards with leaps and bounds. We are dealing here with conditions that I dare say, because of their chronic presence, have ruined people's lives, turning them into miserable patients, at times misunderstood, suspected of being hypochondriacs, and at worst trying to avoid work. Rheumatism and musculoskeletal diseases are, as you know, a group of quite enigmatic conditions, even today, let alone 20, 30, 40, or 50 years ago. Today's laboratory tests have helped in clearly defining whether the patient's complaint is psychosomatic or has real etiology. Way back, we only had our clinical acumen, rudimentary X-rays, and a non-specific erythrocyte sedimentation rate test. We had to go more to trusting the patient that he was being honest with us, and only by minimal signs and symptoms like swelling, redness, and limited mobility if there was any. Our treatment then was analgesics, aspirin, eventually steroids, and the never-ending range of ointments, balms, creams, over and above the indigenous folk medicines treatment of lavish use of olive oil at that time, hot packs, cuppings, known as Funtusi, and of course the super healer, the sun. Today we are talking about these conditions with more medical understanding, more background knowledge, better armed and with diagnostic tests, and a whole armamentarium of drugs designed and developed specifically for the different conditions. Yes, different conditions, because today, what was before a generic diagnosis, such as rheumatism, arthritis, or fibromyositis, has developed into a whole range of different conditions that, though possibly related somehow through etiology, merit different treatments and drug therapies. There was a time when rheumatism was frequently met with, typically after streptococcal throat infections, especially in children, sometimes with lifelong complications on heart valves. With the development of labor-intensive industries in the 70s and the 80s, depending on the repetitive body movements to reach production quotas, we experienced lots of musculoskeletal complaints, especially in the upper limbs, due to repetitive movements and because of our lack of knowledge of ergonomics as we know today. All this led to a deterioration in the quality of life, absenteeism from work, obvious negative effect on the earnings of the individual concerned, and the financial consequences. Add to this the frustration of those who were undiagnosed, or at worst, labeled as scroungers or lazy. The psychological effects on these patients must have been immense. Today, the huge prospects for treatment of these rheumatic and musculoskeletal conditions, opened by knowledge of their possible association in varying degrees with autoimmune disease, is crucial when we consider the situation today in regards of quality of life and prognosis. I commend the Arthritis and Rheumatism Association of Malta for embarking as early as 2007 on a campaign of awareness and education of patients suffering from rheumoskeletal diseases. I also fully subscribe to the idea of forming part of a platform for Southern European associations, which I'm sure presents the opportunity to exchange experiences with practitioners and patients coming from the same moderate temperatures as ours. It's a known fact that such conditions fare worse in cold northern temperatures, and presenting symptoms and prognosis as well as treatment could vary. The title of this conference leads me to also to reflect on changing trends in medical practice. In the past, better or no information was given to the patient, and if any was given, it would be mumbled and garbled, making the patient none the wiser. Today we speak not only of a duty to fully inform the patient, but also to include the patient himself and organizations of patients suffering from the same conditions to participate in the management of the disease itself and the planning of the treatment, whether it's pharmaceutical, physiotherapy, psychological, etc. It is indeed a pity that this meeting is taking place through Zoom. 10 years ago, your representatives enjoyed being physically in Malta. Excuse me. Let us hope COVID-19 restrictions will be gradually lifted, making our life easier. Be that as it may, I wish you all very interesting and fruitful discussions in the interest of achieving a better quality of life for our rheumatic and musculoskeletal patients. Thank you.
Thank you for this great speech from the President of Malta, Dr. George Vella. Thank you, Mary, that you have conducted and you had forced the things to have with us even on a video, His Excellency. And I would like to welcome you, because you were not, you weren't here when I welcome all the people on the conference, and thank you very much for your contribution to have this conference, even digitally, and hosting by your organization, ARAM. And we hope so that we will be able in the future to come in Malta and have the conference there. So until we fix the problem with Ms. Vella, we would like to move on and to give the coordination to Ms. Kadi Andonopoulou, who is going to make the first coordination. And we will see later on with Mary's speech. Thank you.
Okay, good morning to everybody. I'm going to present the session for the comorbidities, and I would like to invite and to call to the floor Professor Kouvelas, who is a professor of clinical pharmacology and general doctor. He's also a director of the Department of Clinical Pharmacology of Aristotle University of Thessaloniki, and now is director and head of the Clinical Trials Unit, which is the first unit in Greece for clinical trials. And so we're fortunately, Professor Kouvelas is going to we're going to see Professor Kouvelas through a video, because he has another meeting to the ministry, and he sent us his speech videotape. Let's hear and see Professor Kouvelas.
The kind invitation, and I'm very glad I have to speak about comorbidities for several categories of patients belonging to the general condition of rheumatic diseases. So, comorbidities. What is exactly comorbidity? In medicine, comorbidity is the presence of one or more additional conditions, often co-occurring, that is concomitant or concurrent with a primary condition. Comorbidity describes the effect of all other conditions an individual patient may have other than the primary condition of interest, and can be physiological or psychological. In the context of mental health, comorbidity often refers to disorders that often coexist with each other, such as depression and anxiety disorders. Comorbidity can indicate either a condition existing simultaneously but independently with another condition, or a related derivative medical condition. Means that the condition can just exist with the other, or can be evoked or exist because of the other condition. The later sense of the term causes some overlap with the concept of complications. For example, a long-standing diabetes mellitus, the extent to which coronary artery disease is an independent comorbidity versus a diabetic complication is not easy to measure, because both diseases are quite multivariate, and there are likely aspects of both simultaneity and consequence. In other examples, the true independence or relation is not ascertainable, because syndromes and associations are often identified long before pathogenic comorbidities are confirmed, and in some examples before they are even hypothesized. However, in many medical examples such as comorbid diabetes mellitus and coronary artery disease, it makes little difference which word is used, as long as the medical complexity is duly recognized and addressed. The term comorbid has three main definitions: to indicate a medical condition existing simultaneously but independently with another condition in a patient, means the patient can have rheumatoid arthritis and COVID infection, for example. to indicate a medical condition in a patient that is caused by or is otherwise related to another condition in the same patient means that somebody has a rheumatic disease and has several types of pains as neuropathic pain. And the third, to indicate two or more medical conditions existing simultaneously regardless of their causal relationship. Comorbidities are common among adults with rheumatic diseases like arthritis. Comorbidities usually are examined in two ways. Comorbidities among people with arthritis. Everyone in this group has arthritis and at least one other chronic condition. Arthritis among people with other chronic conditions. People with other chronic conditions such as heart diseases or diabetes who also have arthritis. The unadjusted prevalence of arthritis among adults with the following chronic conditions is obesity in about 31%, diabetes 47%, and heart disease at about half of the population. Treating each condition may be very helpful to confront comorbidity. For example, if a patient with rheumatic arthritis and obesity losing weight, it has a very big benefit concerning his condition of the knees, for example, and the pain he also have when he is walking. Treating diabetes, it can assist very much in all cases of the disorders concerning pain, as for example, different type of pain because it is comorbid with this peripheral neuropathy. And as you can imagine, heart disease is about the same. In the case of a chronic disease, the appearance of a second pathological condition may be comorbidity. The most of the medical doctors are diagnosing a second disease, means that everything is a second disease, but it can be also adverse drug reaction or side effect of the treatment the patient has for his main disease. It can have a drug-drug interaction because we have many times not only one drug, but the treatment needs minimum 2 drugs, so it can exist some kind of drug-drug interaction. Drug, food, or supplement interaction means that somebody who has already a drug for his main condition, he has to eat something, so it can exist some type of drug-food interaction, or many patients are receiving food supplements. So these food supplements or minerals or vitamins can have a drug interaction, an interaction with a drug. And finally, this pathological condition is a result of a contraindication, means that the patient has some other disease and the drug who's administered because of his chronic disease is contraindicating with the other disease, so it is producing a very severe, sometimes new condition. Is it so difficult to define what exactly we have? It is not very easy, but it is not very difficult. So, the true comorbidity. First, we have to diagnose and treat it. How can we diagnose the comorbidity? Searching the literature and the possibilities of the appearance of this second disease in our main condition. After we have to search the literature and exactly define the possibilities of this comorbidity, then we have to have a critical appraisal on this literature and define what exactly is happening to our patient. And then we have to make an assessment for the risk of the different treatments and approach each disease with its own rules. So we have to create a therapeutic algorithm. We are obliged to talk more than one expert with another, and somehow we have to involve a general practitioner because finally he is the responsible for the holistic procedure of the treatment of the patient. The general rule in clinical pharmacology is that we are starting low, means fewer drugs in lower doses, and we are going slow, means that we're adding the substances one by one, and we're increasing the doses in time, waiting at least some weeks to be the patient to accommodate the new treatment. An adverse drug reaction is an unwanted or harmful reaction experienced following the administration of a drug or combination of drugs under normal conditions of use and is suspected to be related to the drug. An adverse event is harm that occurs while a patient is taking a drug, irrespective of whether the drug is suspected to be the cause. So, if finally, this second pathological condition is not a comorbidity, but it is an ADR or a side effect, we have to make the proper diagnosis. To the end of my slide, I have the report of this possible adverse drug reaction to the pharmacovigilance mechanism of our where because this is the way we are reporting all these adverse drug reactions, and we have always to be sure that the regulatory organizations are receiving our report. So after we are suspecting this adverse drug reaction, we have to search the literature to see what possibilities exist to happen this adverse drug reaction to our patients, and then we have again to make the critical appraisal of this literature, to define the risk assessment, to have the risk management, and create a new therapeutic algorithm, which normally means to pause this possible harmful drug, or we have to make a reduction of the dose, or to see what is the best treatment for our patient. The drug-drug interaction is a change in the action of or side effects of a drug caused by concomitant administration of another drug. A cause of a drug interaction involves one drug which alters the pharmacodynamics or pharmacokinetics of another medical drug. The general idea is that these two minimum drugs can have a pharmacodynamic interaction, means that one of the drugs can enhance or inhibit the first action to his receptor, or to interfere to the mechanism of the action, or it can change somehow the pharmacokinetics by, for example, affecting the liver function, means that it can inhibit the metabolism, and this is producing higher concentrations and maybe toxic of the first drug, or enhance the metabolism, means that we never have the therapeutic concentration of the drug to our blood. The drug-drug interaction needs again the diagnosis. We have again searched thoroughly the literature and make the critical appraisal of our reading, and then we have to produce the risk assessment and risk management. So to continue with the therapeutic algorithm means that we have to pause or report the interaction. Almost the same is the drug-food supplement interaction. The condition needs again to be diagnosed, again to search the literature, to make a risk assessment, and then create a therapeutic algorithm, normally to pause or decrease this additional food if we cannot change the treatment. Indication is a valid reason to use a certain test, medication, procedure, or surgery. There can be multiple indications to use a procedure or medication. Indication can commonly be confused with the term diagnosis. A diagnosis is the assessment that a particular medical condition is present, while an indication is a reason for the use of the treatment. The opposite of an indication is a contraindication, a reason to withhold a certain medical treatment because the risks of treatment clearly outweigh the benefits. and we have absolute contraindications and relative contraindications. From this, we can assume that the indication, it has to be always absolute, means that we need always a very good reason to start a medical treatment. If we are using a drug for which there is a contraindication to our patient and a pathological condition appears, then we have again to search thoroughly the literature and the possibilities to appear this, to exist this contraindication. We have to make this critical appraisal of the patient and the literature, and finally to produce the therapeutic algorithm for our patient. Normally, if there is a contraindication, we have to stop the treatment and replace it with something better fitted to our patient. So it is not a real reason to have all these strange techniques to define if something, a second pathological condition is a comorbidity, a result of a drug-drug interaction, of a side effect, or just the result of a contraindication. But even if we are not certain with anything, at least we have to remember the procedure to divide and diagnose all these different conditions for the better treatment of our patients. Thank you very much, and I hope to be very careful during all these procedures for our patients. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
We're going to give the floor to Mrs. Athanasia Papa, which is the president, is a patient herself, and is the president of the Hellenic League Against Rheumatism. And this is also a health visitor at the University of Padua. Mrs. Athanasia Papa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's not a pleasant process, but it's safe. I would love to meet you again. Living with a chronic health condition often means that, just a moment to change. Okay. Living with a chronic health condition often means that you must self-manage and self-regulate not only the condition symptoms, but also the series of comorbidities and that may come with it. Treatment is a big part of managing a chronic long-term health condition like rheumatoid arthritis, but often we are only told by our doctors to take medicine as prescribed or to follow the treatment plan, and that's it. Throughout their journey as patient, people ask themselves questions that affect how they manage our treatment. For example, will there be any side effects? Will their medication impact my ability to do my everyday tasks? How much will it cost me and my family? The most common emerging concerns that are mental and financial burden until people reach the right doctor, fear from the diagnosis of the diseases, refusal to comply with the diseases, refusal to comply with medical instruction like using alternative treatments that are often not disclosed to the doctor, concern about words that can trigger emotions like methotrexate. I'm sorry. People suffering from chronic diseases are obligated to follow the daily medication and to adapt to the new data, which is required by the respective diseases. Therefore, dealing with such a situation requires complex handling so that both the patient and the people around him move smoothly for the previous daily life to a new phase of coexisting with the diseases. Imagine suffering from chronic pain. To be in constant pain at any time of the day, imagine for a second, how would you feel? What would you do? What would be the fluid emotions? And often encourages you in countryside regions is the stigma. that the RMD patients may experience due to the physical appearance, for example, limping, visible inflammation, etc. People in the countryside regions are often forced to isolate themselves. RMD patients experience many emotional, physiological, and physical change in their lives, and their relationships with their partner, their children, and friends can be affected. Our whole life and coexistence with rheumatic diseases can profoundly affect our way of life and its philosophy, and can call into question many former goals and achievements for our life. Parents, for those of us who have children, there are additional issues. Children are the most important people in the life of parents, but the treatment, outbreaks, comorbidities, and fatigue that we feel can have an impact on the parental role. Friends are a very important part of our social life. Some friends may disappoint us. They may not be supportive as we expected. The journey is long and painful at times. This period of our lives could give us the opportunity to make new friends and meet new people. The negative impact of rheumatoid arthritis on sex, life, and sexuality in general is often underestimated. Many patients experience the loss of their sexual function or sexual desire due to the disease itself, through stiffness, pain, surgery, side effects of drugs, and the morbidity. Our patients often feel unforgettable discussing their sexual concerns with their partners or even with their doctors. They may feel that compared to rheumatics, these issues are not so important. The decision to have children when you are a rheumatoid arthritis patient is always a big one. There are several factors that can affect a woman's ability to have a child. A patient with rheumatics may do well during pregnancy, but there is the possibility of flare-ups after giving birth. Therefore, it depends on the type of diseases, the stage of the diseases, and the treatment, the regimens. Talking to the doctor about your desire to get pregnant would help to discover the best time and condition for having a child. Of people with rheumatic disease wants to work. The issue of work is a priority for many of our patients, and not only for them, but also for the general population. From a physiosocial point of view, work can offer the opportunity to reconnect and to regain relationship with friends and colleagues, while for many it's a source of confidence, the most important purpose in their lives. However, for many patients, it's quite difficult to continue working. Many may need to change the started hour, schedule, or type of work. Others lose their jobs. Many patients experience a significant loss of performance or may have developed comorbidities as a result of their treatments or illness. Finding a new job can be a daunting task for some and a necessity for others. Final decision about work should be made after considering our financial research and ensuring our health, the nature of work, and the nature of our treatment and rehabilitation. Pain is a complex, unpleasant, and subjective experience with asthmatic, emotional, and social dimension. It's important to understand that every person experiences the exact same pain in a different way. So, why does it hurt? This is the question that is often asked by people who are in pain, and it's not always easy to answer. Chronic pain brings other problems. Pain in itself is an independent problem. However, when we live in pain for a long time, things can get worse. Pain often limits a person's ability to work, have fun, or even self-care. Many people who suffer from chronic pain quit their jobs, and that leads to serious financial problems. As time goes by, without any solutions, the person may experience further isolation, depression, and dependence from family and friends, which doesn't help the person with the management of both their diseases and life. There are many factors to managing GRA than just taking drugs on time as prescribed. And if your doctor doesn't meet your needs as a patient, then you start having second thought about listening to his instructions. Okay. People may think it's time to switch doctors when they feel that the rheumatologist is no longer listening to them or giving them the support and tools needed for them to put their health first. Little emphasis is given on the state of their conditions. For example, when things feel too transactional with no emphasis on how the disease is progressing, no mention of how the person is coping with her diseases, no room for talking about how they want their medication to change. They feel that there is a lack of privacy during their visits. But changing rheumatology is difficult for a person for many reasons, especially when they must deal with so much more at the same time. Depression, anxiety, self-doubt, and fatigue are very common comorbidities that seriously impact a patient's mental health. So, apart from the medical treatment, a person must develop self-management and skills needed to cope with her daily struggles. Living with the chronic conditions wear down a person's mental capacities over time. Self-managing your mental and physical health, including getting a new project or hobby, exercising daily, walking, swimming, etc., according to your needs and capabilities, keeping family and friends close and involved in social activities as normal, discussing with your boss your health issue and asking if it's possible to occupy yourself with a less tiring work positions, seeking professional mental help for your pain symptoms, find a rheumatologist that makes you feel safe and listen to your concern and needs, take joy with the little things in life, the hours, days, and weeks that you are pain-free. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Papa. It's a very useful information and very useful lecture. Unfortunately, we don't have Professor Kouvelas for questions, but he told me that if you have something, it's very welcome to write to him by email or to send the question to us, and I will forward them to him, and he will going to answer to you directly. Thank you very much, everybody, and let's go again. I hope that now we can hear Marivella, and I'm going to give the floor to Andrei in order to present and coordinate and give the floor to Mary. Thank you very much for all.
Good morning again, Mary. Hope so now we will hear you. Oh, we are hearing you. Thank you. So I was telling before that we are very happy that we have again our 10th conference in Malta. Thank you for all your efforts and all your willingness and warm hosting our conference. Now the floor is yours to listen to you and to talk about all of the conference things later.
Thank you, Andrei, and good morning, everybody. A very big welcome and warm welcome from all of us in Malta. I'm very sorry that this had to happen and had disrupted a bit our program, but it's never too late. I thank you all, wherever you are, who are joining us today, being a Saturday, instead of resting, feeling good and full of enthusiasm to hear our guest speakers today in the International Conference of Comorbities and Clinical Trials. We already heard Dr. Anastasia, which was very good, her presentation, and our president who has greeted us this morning. And professors, I didn't hear it so much, but we thank all of the speakers, which I'm sure are going to convey to us much knowledge that will be very beneficial to us in the near future. Unfortunately, for the second year, we have to celebrate Agora conference virtually due to COVID restriction. It is indeed a pity, and very disappointing that we could not meet face to face for this special occasion to celebrate Agora 10th anniversary. We had much wished that we could have celebrated it together as usual, embrace each other and share and network with each other and get to know new people, and while unite with new ones we already knew and have been acquainted with during various conferences we attended. But COVID had limited all this for us. During these last 10 years, to my great satisfaction, I saw Agora organization grow and flourish. It was Marios Koulemos who was the one who worked immensely to bring together all southern countries which share many similarities, as the President has already stated, together under one umbrella. I pay tribute to Maria Bazzao, who is no longer with us, and Sandra Candelo, who worked to lay the groundwork of the bylaws of Agora to be established. I wish to thank all presidents who followed on the footsteps of Susie Marti, who was chosen to be the first Agora president and re-elected again for another 3 years. Thanks to Eva Tisconiatti, Evedeo Constantino, I'm sorry I can't pronounce the surname, and now Andri Pocca, Agora secretariats, members of the committee and working groups who work continuously hard to keep Agora moving forward and pave the way for all southern countries to learn and share from each other and be of support. Sure, it is not always plain sailing. There are ups and downs, but with determination, tolerance, and patience and empowerment, the organization can continue to grow into a hub of training and education as it was meant to be. It is through Agora that the self-management course was introduced to Malta. It was through Agora that we experienced our first transfer of knowledge with another country, Israel, in the year 2019. I am sure that Agora can be the pivot of other opportunities for its member countries. I thank all speakers who generously accepted our invitation to participate during this conference. I thank you very much, Andre, and our committee who have the pleasure to welcome and to host us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Honestly, your welcome speech, it was very cinematic, and I know that you were on the first conference of Agora and on the first steps of Agora together with Miss Susie Margrit, together with Elena, the Secretariat, that you give to the Agora's vision. You gave the soul of Agora, and you with the rest of the people that were on the first board, you start this amazing thing that is Agora with amazing people, and we continue, and we are still here, and we're trying to have a better Agora for the future, in order to have a better future for people with RMDs, especially in the Southern Europe. Thank you again. If you need to say something more, the platform is yours. You can say whatever you want.
I thank you, Andre, and it's a pleasure. I'm very sorry that this morning had to happen.
This can happen to all of us. It's a technology.
Thank you, because we always wanted to get it flowing and organized. We've been trying all week, but these things happen in the last moment. So, I don't have anything to add. Thank you so much. I thank you for all your work. I wish you luck with all your committee and the work members. And I'm sure you will strive. You're still young, and you have new ideas. We already have a layout for the future of Agora, and we look for the best. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mary. So shall we continue, Karin? Do we have any questions from our previous lectures?
No, we don't have any questions, but we have to make a coffee break until the exact time of our program, because we're a bit earlier. Maybe
no, we are okay with the time. I think
no,
I can.
It is the next session. It's 11:15.
Okay.
So we have to wait. If you would like me, I can try to call the next two speakers in order to join earlier. But or if you would like me to have, and keep schedule the program. I don't know what you like.
We can skip the schedule of the program, as I can see on the program our next one.
Professor Neville is not joining, and not only, and Anna is not joining. It's not in.
It's on.
Yes, we can.
Sorry, 11 o'clock. Now is the questions or coffee break.
Yes.
We can have a coffee break.
Okay.
But before we go, Katia, I would like to say thank you to Athanasia that she's with us. And I know that all of people with RMDs that are facing some comorbidities due to the pharmacies, due to the medicine sometimes, or due to the disease by its own, make a lot of comorbidities. So thank you, Athanasia, for your presentation. And I think we should do something more about comorbidities in the future of Agora. Thank you, Athanasia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon again.
Yeah.
Not like
we
that.
Hope so.
Not like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Athanasia. So we will have a break until 11 o'clock. And we will be back at 11. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am from Israel. I'm the CEO of Mifrakim Tzeirim, is the Israeli Association of RMD's patients. I will be the facilitator in this session. And I would like to welcome Professor Neville Kalea, and he's the head of Department of Public Health and the Faculty of Medicine Surgery in the University of Malta, and a medical doctor and a specialist in public health medicine. Professor Kalea has 15 years of experience lecturing medical statistics and epidemiology and public health to all healthcare professionals, together with ethical and scientific review of projects and local and international level. So I'm sure that his lecture, Clinical Trials Opportunity of Treat, will be very interesting. Thank you in advance. The stage is yours for the next 20 minutes.
Thank you. If you'll allow me, I'll share some slides that I've prepared for us. Share screen, yes. There it is. Okay, so thanks for the introduction. I've been asked to discuss with you sort of clinical trials. I understand that you do get opportunities to participate in clinical trials, at least in some of the countries. And I can also understand it may be a daunting decision to take. So I'd like to discuss with you and take you through what it typically involves. I believe the next speaker will be able also to give you first-hand experience herself of this. So I'll be talking more about sort of the principles here, and then I guess Ms. Vieira after me can also, tell you how it felt or how it feels to take part in such clinical trials. So. Okay, so basically, we're faced with a decision here. You might come across an advert, or your physician might inform you that they're running a clinical trial in the hospital, and you have to decide, should I go, should I not? You know, how safe will I be in the clinical trial? We've heard a lot, you know, especially in these COVID days, a lot of misinformation around clinical trials. I'm not saying that the pharma industry is an angel, of course. It's a business like everything else. But what I can assure you of is that we've come a long way in terms of the regulation of clinical trials over the past decades. And this is something I want to share with you over the next 20 minutes to try and instill some faith into the process of, into the governance framework, really, around clinical trials. So usually when developing a medicine, there's a very long time period actually from when you know, the eureka moment happens of finding a new drug that could work actually for a specific disease until it reaches the market. So this period is usually up to 12 years, which is a very long time. Now, when you think about it, usually patents for drugs are limited by time, and that is sort of for a specific reason, so that after a set amount of time, whoever discovered the drug then you know, would hopefully have recovered his or her costs, and then it would be made available for generic drug manufacturers to start manufacturing that same drug after that patent period expires. Now, there are situations where that might be extended for reasons or another, but in general, we're talking about usually 20 years from the discovery of the molecule, 12 of which go into research. And the parts where clinical trials usually happen are those three stages in the drug development, which are known as phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 research. Phase 1 is where we get the first exposure of humans to the drug. This is usually not patients here. It's usually healthy young males. You might say, why males, not females? It's also because of the risk of problems should the female become pregnant. You know, the drug is still relatively new in humans, so usually females are not exposed to the drug at this early stage. But then phase 2 and phase 3 would require patients, and this is where usually opportunities come up to join clinical trials. Phase 2 are usually studies designed to find the best level, the safety side of things, as in terms of which levels of the drug work best to achieve the clinical endpoints that they would be seeking. Phase 3 is more to compare the new drug with existing drugs. Okay, so is there an advantage or not to switch to this new drug? And then once phase 3 is completed, one goes to apply for a marketing authorization. It might be strange to go back to World War II here, but as strange as it may sound, this is actually one good thing that came out of the atrocities that happened in World War II. As part of the Nuremberg trials, obviously the atrocities of the research that was happening in Nazi concentration camps came to light, and it was very clear that there needs to be a governance framework around clinical research. So we have basically first this initial attempt to set up a framework to regulate clinical trials back in 1947, known as the Nuremberg Code, which is still very much active. We heard it mentioned recently within COVID, unfortunately by the anti-vax group. It was not well founded, but you know, it achieved limelight again recently, these last few months. So I will be sharing these slides with the organizers so that they may share them with you if you need. So I've tried to include as much information in these slides as you wish for your own reading later on, but basically these are the principles of the Nuremberg Code, the ones that you see in front of you. This was not the last step, of course, this was the first step. So then this moved on and it evolved a lot. 1964 World Medical Association adopted its own set of biomedical research guidelines, which are much applicable you can see what time too much on these wordy slides. In the US,
we are having some technical problems with Professor Kalea. Can you help us, the technical support, please?
I think I just rejoined. Can you hear me?
Yes, 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 thank you.
Okay, I put up my slides again. I hope you can see them. Can you see the slides?
Yes, yes.
Yes, okay, I'll go on then. So basically then in the US, we had another relatively nasty experiment, not related to World War II, but it was unfortunately a badly implemented experiment that was not stopped for several decades on a deprived population in the US. So again, we had a similar push towards a governance framework for clinical trials known as the Belmont Report, issued in 1974. So what am I trying to do here? I'm not trying to give you a history lesson, but just to show you that the regulation of clinical trial comes a long way, and there's a lot of experience since last 20 years or so. We've seen a lot of since the turn of the century, I would say, since 2009. Lately, we don't have an EU regulation. I'm not sure if you appreciate the difference between a regulation and the directive. The directive is up to member states to implement partly or fully. A regulation is implementable in full across EU member states. So basically, this governance framework has been upgraded in 2014 and came into effect in 2018. The idea has been basically we've learned from the experience of the 2001 legislation, which was, I would say, very safe for the patient, but was also introducing several delays in the process and in a way hindering research to some extent because it made it very cumbersome for the researchers. Now I think there's a good balance between keeping that element of safety for the patient almost pretty much untouched, whilst making it easier also for researchers to start research, because ultimately, if you stifle research, it's useless having a governance framework in the first place. Again, in those countries that are within the EU or the EA, the agency that regulates these matters is the European Medicines Agency, now based in Amsterdam, following Brexit. It was based in London before. It regulates clinical trials and also marketing authorization of medications for both human and veterinary use. Now, this agency comprises then in itself several national competent authorities. So every member state has a competent authority. In Malta, for example, we have an authority called the Medicines Authority, which does this work on behalf of EMA. In all your member states, in all your countries, you'll probably have similar competent authorities these days. I put a list there again for your reference at a later stage. So when, as Michal was telling you, I've been sitting on ethics committees for more than a decade now around clinical trials. Basically, when is a decision taken by an ethics committee to proceed with a clinical trial? Effectively, these are the principles that guide the decision. From an ethical perspective, there needs to be sufficient doubt about the test product to justify withholding it from half or part of the population taking part in the clinical trial. And on the other hand, you have to have sufficient belief from those studies that have been done as part of preclinical research that the sponsor of the trial usually submits to us for analysis, enough belief in the product and its potential to justify exposing several of the study participants to it. So this is a balance here. We have some doubt, but we also have some certainty. And as long as that balance remains balanced, okay, the clinical trial moves ahead. Once that imbalance is not in balance anymore, so we have clear benefit, or else we have clear harm, then the clinical trial stops. Okay, and we'll talk about also these stopping rules in the next slide. On the other hand, for the sponsor, it needs to be feasible. Now, this can be a bit of a problem when it comes to orphan diseases or rare diseases, because obviously recruiting enough patients can be quite difficult and involve several centers. Also, it's actually now against the law in most of our countries that a company proceeds with a clinical trial without clearance by regulatory authorities. These frameworks exist nowadays, even in low and middle income countries to some extent. So I would expect that our respective countries have frameworks in place, even if they are not part of the EU. We discussed this balance between harm and benefit. Okay, so usually, especially the longer clinical trials, there would be what is known as a data safety board that follows the progress of the trial, does what we call interim analysis of the patients. Is the active group doing significantly better than the placebo group or the comparator group, or worse for that matter, okay? And if there is a clear distinction between the two, a trial may be stopped. I could give you an example here. I'm not sure how many of you were around when AZT was being developed for HIV. AZT, there were two separate big clinical trials happening in the US and the UK, and the patients having on the active group were showing very significant benefit as opposed to those receiving placebo or standard treatment. In one of the trials, this difference was very distinct, and the trial was stopped, I think in the US, if I remember correctly. In the UK, it didn't seem like this difference was significant enough, or at least the board felt it's not time to stop yet. And this obviously created some problems. In fact, the UK trial had to fold anyway because of the findings of the US, but that's a different story. But this is just to show you that these clinical trials are usually actively monitored through their duration to assess whether there is clear harm or clear benefit. I remember another clinical trial, which we had here actively happening in Malta for an antibiotic, I remember for pneumonia. And at one point, it had not yet started in Malta, actually, because we were one of the later centers. But at one point, many of the patients having this drug were developing renal failure. And the trial was simply stopped within a few weeks, obviously because it was leading to more harm than benefit, and the drug was shelved. So this is just to try and give you more trust into the processes involved. As an ethics committee, we would basically be looking at particularly what you could call the protocol of the study. Okay, so what's the study trying to achieve? Who will be invited for the study? What will happen in the study? What are the rules applicable? What information will be captured and stored, and for how long? What kind of risk protection will there be? Insurance in place, compensation for patients should anything go wrong, and how long the study will last. These are, I think, the main points that we will So, to join a clinical trial, what should you expect? All right. So when you enroll, when you're asked to enroll into a clinical trial, you're usually first recruited or approached, but maybe by your physician. Then you go through a screening process. Why? Because we need to ascertain that you are within the inclusion criteria and not within the exclusion criteria. We'll talk a little bit about this later. So the exclusion criteria would be maybe criteria that make you expose you to more danger than you should be exposed, and maybe taking part in that clinical trial is not for you, and ultimately giving your informed consent. Okay. How would you be informed about clinical trials? I mentioned your own physician, but you might also actively within the EU announced. Again, this is something that many COVID misinformers not know when discussing vaccines, that every clinical trial in the US and in the EU is actually publicly available. The information around it is publicly available. And you can look them up.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but can you go 2 slides back, please?
The first link is the EU one. Yes.
We couldn't hear you. Can you go 2 slides back, please? There is interruption on the line. Very bad.
This one. Is it this one you're referring to?
No, one. Try another one. The next one. Yeah.
This one you want it? Yes. Okay. So as I was explaining earlier, these are the 3 stages we would expect to go through when enrolling in a clinical trial. So the initial approach, the screening process, and the informed consent. I will be explaining these very, very soon. This we discussed. These are the databases for clinical trials. Okay. Now, in some instances, there is advertising for participation in clinical trials. I know in some countries it's more common than in others. Okay, when there is advertising, there are certain principles that need to be in place. Okay, we need to know who is running the clinical trial, for what purpose, on what disease, who is eligible and who should not take part, what kind of tests or what kind of examinations will I be getting as a participant of the clinical trial? How long will I be involved? And are there any patient groups that I could refer to for further information? So these are usually the principles that we expect to see in an advert. Now you might say, come on, a little advert in the newspaper having all this information. In fact, most of the time, they would give you a link to a website or a telephone number you can contact and get more of this information. What it must not do is definitely promise anything, all right, like a cure or a good outcome, or that the medicine being tested is 100% safe and that it definitely works, because otherwise we would not be doing a clinical trial. And even worse, be coercive, especially when it comes to vulnerable patients. Okay, so we spoke about inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. Usually these are defined in terms of age, sex, the type of diagnosis. What we're trying to do here is to identify a group of similar patients, okay? Just to make sure that we don't get differences that we might not be able to explain, so to say. And we need to have comparable patients, of course, between the new drug and the established drug.
We lost you again.
I am very, very sorry about my connection. I really don't know what's happening.
Maybe
can you hear me now?
Yes, and maybe put off the camera.
I will indeed. It's a good idea. So I missed my camera. So I won't keep you too long because I'm running out of time. But basically, the next part is a very important part because this is the consent process. Okay, so
I'm sorry, Professor, we lost you again. Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think you was telling me I was out of time, or
you have more 2 minutes.
Well, 2 minutes. All right. Yeah. So quickly, just last few slides. Okay, I'll go quickly to what we probably should be looking for. All right. So the purpose, as I said, the treatment that is being given, how you'll be assigned which treatment group, and procedures to my responsibility as participants. For example, in some clinical trials, they might have to be taken. Okay, anything that's experimental, that is sure need to be clearly risks. Okay, expected benefits, of course. And also, if you're not receiving the active drug, or rather the new drug, what are you getting? Are you getting placebo? Are you getting established treatment? And lastly, also,
sorry,
that is
Professor,
available
we cannot hear you very
in
well.
event of what we call I'll go to a few slides. Okay, so I'll conclude at this point. Sorry about the connection. I was not expecting this. But basically, I'll share the slides also with the organizers so that they can share them with you as participants as well. Effectively, in conclusion, what I was trying to explain to you is that there is a very strong governance framework around clinical trials. There's very little room for abuse. And basically, it's a win-win situation for a patient with a chronic disease. Okay, so a patient with chronic disease who might have exhausted existing treatment pathways. You get the chance to try a new drug which might actually work for you. For the researcher, of course, and for the community at large, you are helping new treatments to become available for the condition you might have. So I'll leave you with that. I hope, I'm really sorry about the connection, but I hope I managed to give you some peace of mind that maybe there is more of an opportunity than a threat, because many of the threats have been addressed by years of experience building a governance framework around clinical trials. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll give back the floor to you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Professor. I'm sorry about the connection too. I would like to say to all the participations that the whole conference will be available at the website of Agora once we will finish, and everyone can see the conference again. And now, without any more delay, I'm sure that and hope that everyone knows our Ana Valeria from Portugal. Ana has so many titles of volunteer work that if I start, I will not finish until tomorrow. And I'm sure that we want to hear her. She's a very busy bee. Ana will speak about clinical trials from the patient's perspective. And the stage is yours, and you have 10 minutes, of course, and after it, we will, if we will have time and questions, we will deal with that. Ana, please.
Thank you, Michal, for the very nice welcome. I will try to share my screen now. Please let me know if you can see my slides now.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so please keep in mind that just like Michal said, I am in Portugal and the location is important in this. In Portugal, we do not have advertising of clinical trials at all at the moment. We're still a very conservative country in this aspect. So what I've tried to do here was share with you my experience of a clinical trial that is still ongoing. So here I will try to give you a very general overview of the trial I have been involved in. It's a phase 2 clinical trial that for primary Sjogren's syndrome, which is my condition. Professor Neville clearly explained what phase 2 was all about. So we are testing safety and efficacy of the drug here. The drug I am receiving is known as iscalimab, which is an immunosuppressive therapy that targets the proteins CD154 and CD40 that are believed to have a role in inflammation and in the regulation of the immune system. This is a 6-arm trial, double-blinded, randomized with placebo. It's a multi-center trial, this meaning that it's running in different countries. We have 2 cohorts in this trial. In the total of 2 cohorts worldwide, they expect to enroll 260 participants, which is a very optimistic number, I suppose. because Sjogren's syndrome is a low prevalence disease and very heterogeneous. So finding similar patients, it's really difficult, just like Professor Neville stated, when what comes to rare diseases or low prevalence diseases. So in cohort 1, just so you can have a clear idea why there's 2 cohorts. In cohort 1, there are 3 different doses being tested. 150 milligrams, 300, 600, and placebo, of course, and you have 25% of possibilities of getting the placebo in this cohort 1. On cohort 2, they are only testing the 600 milligrams dose, and there's a 50% possibility of getting the placebo. This drug is administered under your skin. It's a subcutaneous administration. It's 2 injections every time you go to the hospital in different places. And they alternate. I mean, it's in your arms, your belly, and your legs. It's a 48 weeks trial, and the 48 weeks ended for me in August, on the 12th of August, on my birthday. Now I'm on a follow-up period of almost 3 months, just to see how my body reacts without the drug. And I have been proposed an extension period of almost 2 years. So this meaning that in December, I will start again receiving the drug. The important and very positive aspect of this trial is that at the middle of the trial, so at the 24 weeks, all patients will be receiving the drug. This meaning that those that were previously on placebo, they will get the drug, and it has not always been like this. In the past, those on placebo will stay on placebo for the entire trial, I mean. So I also thought about sharing with you what were my motivations to join this trial. And because there was no advertising about it, I just heard about it from my doctor. Because he had nothing to offer to me. There's no drug approved for Sjogren's syndrome. I take Lakinol and prednisone every day, but it was not enough to manage my symptoms. So he exhausted all possibilities and mentioned this trial to me. And because I wanted very much to improve my quality of life and to get the best care possible, I didn't think twice to enroll on this trial, because I knew I would get access to a brand new therapy. Also, I had this strong feeling of knowing that cooperating with this, I would be helping to make this new drug available if the outcome is positive, to have a drug in the market for other patients to have access to, keeping in mind that for Sjogren's syndrome, there's no approved drug so far. Of course, there are concerns, and safety was my major concern, because I wanted very much that it would not interfere in the current stage of my condition. I didn't want it to make it worse than it was. And as you know, just like every other therapy, side effects are always there, and especially on a new therapy that is unknown, it can have an unpredictable impact in your life. I've brought you just a few examples. I got the COVID vaccine, but I had no serological response. This means I'm waiting for the 3rd dose now, but we don't know if it will work. I had bowel and bladder complications after I started this trial, rosacea, among other symptoms. So side effects, it's part of the package, but you're not always prepared to deal with that. One thing I believe it's important also is to have someone to talk to at the hospital you are enrolling in the clinical trial, someone who can answer your questions throughout the study. It's quite reassuring, especially if you have your doctor's support on the decision. And I can assure you this was a shared decision between me and my doctor. I didn't felt at any time persuaded to enroll. I really wanted to do it because I knew there weren't many or any alternatives. So having my questions answered throughout the study was of great value to me. Not only my doctor, but also the clinical trial coordinator was always there for me. She's always available on WhatsApp, whether it's a Sunday or a Wednesday morning or late in the night. She's always there for me. And this is quite of value. So health benefits, it's an important consideration when you participate in a clinical trial. I've just mentioned this before. So because it provides you a drug, a therapy, a treatment, or a medical device that potentially could improve the quality of my life. Logistics, it's another aspect that is very important and to keep in mind. In my case, I live 140 kilometers away from the hospital. I have to go there every 2 weeks if there isn't any emergency in the middle of the 2 weeks. This meaning that every time I go to the hospital, go and coming back home, it's 300 kilometers of drive, and this really is a burden. I get home really fatigued, it's time consuming, and it does have a certain impact in my daily activities, in my work, and so on. So this is an aspect you must keep in mind when you take the decision. And I wasn't very much aware of the dimension of the burden this would be for me, but it's something I thought I could bring here. Another aspect, it's the patient centricity. When you are in a clinical trial, you get a better patient pathway, you get a top quality of care that you don't get in your daily clinic when you are not in a clinical trial. So it's important that the industry or the promoter of the drug has the ability to truly embrace patients as partners. And this has a lot to do with the medical professionals that are involved in the research team. So talking with doctors, clinical trial coordinators, and nurses involved in the research really helped me, and I think it would very likely help patients feel more like a partner in the research. Talking not only with medical professions, but also with other patients like me, or a patient organization or company responsible for the project could be motivating and reassuring, I believe, although I don't have this experience, but I thought this could be a game changer when you are in a clinical trial.
Anna, 2 minutes.
Okay. So it's all about well-informed decisions. It's very important to have good information before you decide to participate in a clinical trial. I brought you here different ways where information should be available. And I'll just call your attention for the last one, which is receiving information from a patient organization could be a game changer, because we don't have this in Portugal, and possibly the same happens in other countries. It's still a taboo to be involved in a clinical trial, and there's a lot of misconceptions around it. So improving communication is really, really very important for patients. There's low health literacy, as you all know, and informed consents are a very difficult document to read and to understand. This needs to be improved, and patient organizations should be involved in promoting better study designs. So my conclusion is that better study designs, approaches, and services should be focused on the needs and preferences of patients, and they can improve clinical research participation and help the advancement of the development of medicine and medical devices. Thank you. Overall, my experience is positive, and I will be happy to take questions from now on.
Okay, so I can't see if we have questions. Please, if anyone have questions, write it down on the QA, and we will ask Anna. I would like to say something that Professor Neville Valeria just wrote us that many clinical trials may also cover expenses to travel, for example. So it needs to be asked the people who are involved in these clinical trials. And I would like to say that was very important what you said about the organizations, but it needs to be a very comfortable and a very good way to an organization to know that there is trials and to keep in touch with the doctors that are doing these trials, because otherwise you don't have any way to know that it's going on.
Absolutely agree, Michal. That's the very first and very big obstacle that needs to be overcome. If there's no advertising, no information anywhere, how can we build a bridge with the patient organizations?
Yeah, so we have a question. Why is it a taboo to participate in a clinical trial? You said it's taboo. And how does society look at this? Look at this.
So when I say it's a taboo, because there's little to no information, and this generates misinformation. So patients and families and carers, when they think of a clinical trial, they immediately think they're going to be a lab mouse, and they see only threats, and they can't see the opportunities a clinical trial can bring to the patient. It's not only the drug or the therapy that can benefit you, but the assistential care you get from the hospital. So it's really totally different. It's a top care you receive there. So there's always someone you can connect to at any time of the day, at any day of the week. In my case, I had to wear a bracelet that was connected to the internet, so at any time they could check on my blood heart rate and sleep rates and a lot of information at a distance. They can monitorize me, and you don't get this on your daily clinic. You don't have a team totally available for you 24 hours a day or 7 days a week. So it's not only the drug, but the quality of care you get when you are in a clinical trial. And this information should be disseminated, and taboos should be cleared out. And this is all about information. But it's a cooperation. It's not on patient organization side. There should be a cooperation between patient organizations, doctors, and the drug promoters, the pharma industry. So to make the society understand clinical trials are needed to address a series of conditions that have no drugs or little drugs to manage these conditions. I hope I've answered the questions.
I'm sure that you did. Yeah, just wanted to say it. Thank you. We have 1 minute, please, Professor.
No, just a quick comment in addition to what Anna has just answered. I agree fully. It's fear of the unknown, which is why I wanted to dedicate most of my presentation to the regulatory process and the governance framework around clinical trials. Anna has highlighted another aspect, and I'm glad she did rather than I did, the increased attention that you're going to get also whilst participating in the clinical trial, apart from the opportunity, of course, to access a new drug, which may make you feel better. It's important that we emphasize the word may, okay? And ultimately, you're also helping fellow patients with having more drugs available at a later stage in time. So this is really the issue around the participation in clinical trials. It's fear of the unknown, which is why you need to ask as a person of trust, maybe your physician, as to what it will involve exactly in detail before signing on the dotted line.
Thank you very much to Anna and to Professor Professor Kaleya. We will go to a very long break now to have lunch, and we will be here at 1:15. Please be here even 2 minutes before to the schedule to have a good course until we finish. Have a good appetite. I don't know. Have a good lunch, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. See you soon.